No, we can't make him bigger because, like I said, I have him on my shoulder like a little buddy. Yeah, yeah. I have a little buddy, so I'm kind of digging it. I'm kind of digging it.
I can, yeah, I've got, oh wait, small, medium, large.
Hell yeah. Well, we are
And
live,
making,
I think.
we made it. Hello, 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 everyone. Let's just double check that we are live on X here.
I'm sharing on
Um,
X right now.
yeah, I see it. Okay, we did it. We figured it out. Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard to another episode of the HOL AI, except this time it's different. We are streaming live to you. You can see our faces in pixel perfect perfection here. We've got Brandon Davenport, our co host, and Phil from Hashpack here today joining us at HOL AI. Number one, if you are not aware, obviously Phil is from Hashback, number one retail wallet in the Hedera ecosystem. We've got Brandon here, who is running a wonderful, very, very cool show on X as well, long-term Hedera contributor between various organizations. And if you're not aware of the HLXAI show, that's fine. Today, what we'll be doing is we're covering the latest news. This is the best download for you to learn everything about AI. That comes some spicy takes, new models, research. From time to time, we'll have cool guests here on the show as well. So we're going to be covering a lot of cool things here, and we're going to have lots of fun. So maybe what I'll do here is some round of intros. Brandon, if you want to go first, and then Phil. How's it going, guys?
It's going good, man. it's I always love these, and I'm glad we are switching to video because for folks that don't know, we've been going live consistently talking about AI and everything happening. And I think that as the spaces continued evolving, I remember like a while back, Michael, is the conversations were a lot slower. It was like one week we were talking about OpenAI, the next week we were talking about Anthropic, the next week we were talking about OpenAI, the next week we were talking about Anthropic, you know? And now, just as in the pre show, talking about all the things that there are to talk about, now it feels like there's not even enough time to do it. So it's good that we're on video because we're going to be able to share all the stuff we're doing. And I think that even just right before going live, some of the stuff I'm seeing in the AI space is insane. So the pace has picked up. So I'm just happy that we're delivering more data to the people through their eyes holes and ears holes now. So that's what I'm happy about.
I love that. Phil, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we spent probably like 20 minutes just figuring out if this thing was live. It's like we're still adjusting internally. With today's episode, we did not put a whole bunch of marketing behind it. We spend a lot of time letting you guys know that we're going to do this live edition. It's going to be messy and choppy, but it's going to be fun. We're still learning how to use and integrate these platforms into our own flows. But we do promise, number one, first and foremost, this is going to be a fun, exciting show. You will get no filter content. We're going to tell you, what's good, what's interesting, what's spicy, and our takes. This won't be cookie cutter. So if you want cookie cutter content, don't come to HLXAI. That's not what we're going to do here, but you are going to learn a lot. This is going to be huge downloads. So I guess maybe we'll jump right into some of the topics that we want to talk about today. Um, Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about open source AI, right? And HOL, we're an open source standards body, and we really believe that the future for agentic AI comes from open source. There's a lot of guardrails that come with that. Now, not everyone is a huge proponent of open source models, and we've seen obviously over the past year or so, open source AI has caught up to frontier SOTA capabilities. We're talking about Kimi K3, we're talking about Zai, GLM, 5.3, Qwen 3.8. These are all models now that are reaching the same capabilities as Claude's, Anthropic, as 5.6 GPT. And with this comes, number one, allegations. We see often that organizations be like, well, you copied our model, you distilled it, you took all of our knowledge and stuff, which is fun because you think about it, it's like, where did you get that knowledge, by the way? Just wondering, can you tell us? So big headline is Washington is preparing to make countries choose between US and Chinese AI alliances. That's spicy, right? Well, this is a spicy show, guys. So the US is preparing to tell dozens of countries that participation in Washington's Pax Silica initiative may be incompatible with membership in China's competing AI corporation framework. Pax Silica is intended to secure supply chains spanning models, semiconductors, critical minerals, and supporting infrastructure. If you've been paying attention, obviously, this is a big blockade with NVIDIA, right? You've got all these non-Western models who are trying to get chips, and they can't get the chips. There's import and export controls. And that's been a big blockade, so big that these non-Western models are now trying to figure out, how do we get chips through an alternate solution? What does that kind of look like? So with this piece of news, obviously, there's a few headlines that we have to think about. Number one, geopolitical blockades from country to country. Europe has their own ideas about AI and regulation watermarks. That's spicy. AI alignment now means foreign policy alignment, right? What is an AI allowed to do versus not allowed to do? Is an AI allowed to hack into systems? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or is it allowed to think a certain way that we might not agree on? And will the next frontier of the Cold War include things like minerals, chips, and export controls? So we're here, guys, for a spicy topic of the day. I want to pass it here to, I'm going to start with Phil. Phil, what do you think about this? And I will try to see if I can make you look bigger here on the screen. So I know you're tiny.
I was on the stream. I don't know if Phil's coming through on the stream because he's still small. So I think that you got to use the link that's in the calendar invite. Hell yeah, brother. I can dive in. I can dive in here and filibuster Michael. I was gonna say this is a spicy topic because, and I think that at the core why it's spicy is I saw something on my feed today of Travis Cleese in an advertisement with Liquid Death, encouraging people to mail jars of their pee to data centers. And I think that we very much underestimate and discount how much people very, very much dislike artificial intelligence, right? I know that we've been in the crypto space for a long time. We know that narrative. We are in a little bit of a bubble. I think that when we look at the general population, the voting population that regulators, lawmakers have to answer to, the consensus largely is that they do not like artificial intelligence. So I think that there's kind of a decelerating effect for sure. And I think that that's kind of what makes this a bit of a spicy topic because you're dealing with it from kind of a few sides. Like from one side, you're dealing with it from the capacity of this company versus that company. From the other side, you're dealing with it from how this technology is going to impact your own life and your own work. And then the other side is that you're dealing with just the realities of the broader world. And it's a little bit different from crypto because artificial intelligence just has such an immediate and outsized impact on everyone's day-to-day lives. We've kind of seen it, and the narratives are so strong. The other thing that's very, very interesting to me and just adds further complexity to this conversation is recently we've seen Apple, for example, partner with Google to train models specifically for the Chinese market. There's a lot of interesting things that come into play as it pertains to artificial intelligence. And I think what comes top of mind to me, and maybe I'll throw the mic to Phil, is like what comes to top of mind for me is, can this be contained, right? Is this a situation where we can successfully and geographically and legally manage these these artificial intelligence deployments and effects, or can we not? Is it just kind of security theater? It's really interesting to kind of see that, and I think that the Pandora's box is open source AI, and I think it kind of freaks everybody out, from the companies to governments. But I'll throw it back to you, Phil.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go broad and just like tackle it into like broad spectrum and just like I feel like when the cross, I call it all the time, like, and you mentioned crypto, of course, like the intersection of things also in 2026, where it's like we're coming up to a point where AI and the same thing for ownership with Web3 and all those beautiful tech means that we have now is just like coming up to an end where it's not a bubble, but folks are realizing what can you do with it and especially what can you not do with it. And that's where, of course, companies like HOL comes into play, where you need guardrails, you need stuff for folks to be figuring out what can you do with AI? What can you do, especially with content? What can you do with ownership? When we talked about watermarks, that's a spicy subject, especially around cloud models. So I feel like inside the intersection year that we are, the velocity of things will happen. It'll be like the curve on things will literally go, well, from the other side, it'll be from that way, where folks are arriving at a point where okay, I potentially can have all those beautiful power now that I used to have on my chat box, but now I can also have it on my mobile phone. Now I can experience all those beautiful things also on new devices that maybe didn't make sense before, but now it does. So I feel like it's still the figuring out phase that we are right now that just doesn't seem to click, like say with call it retail, and companies are still trying to figure it all out. But yeah, intersection year is what this is right now. So yeah, it's beautiful phase.
It is, and it's it's so weird too with this Pax Silica agreement because essentially, uh, what the kind of like Washington is signaling is that you can't have it both ways. You can't be using AI from U.S. labs and Chinese labs at the same time. Specifically, it says that the agreement aims to push U.S. allies and partners towards joint projects and export controls, while kind of reducing reliance on critical minerals and models that might come, from non-Western places in China. And it seems to be a pivotal moment, which is, you look at historically, it's like, hey, we've embraced global economies for so long. Infrastructure, so much manufacturing does happen out of China, and is from my perspective, this almost seems to be like a hey, let's figure out who the bad guy is here, and it, you know, is there really a bad guy? Or are we inventing a boogeyman here so that we can say somebody is the villain? Because if you look at the bigger picture, the open source AI that we've seen from China has enabled so much, right? Uh, DeepSeek is a great example, right? DeepSeek V4 Flash is a completely open source model. Anybody can go and download it. And you get near SOTA frontier capabilities that you can run on $10,000 worth of hardware, right? That you're looking at as like, hey, if you want to run a 1.5 trillion model, which aren't in most cases aren't even open source, right? What kind of hardware would you need? Millions and millions of dollars worth of GPUs. We're getting closer and closer to being able to enter a world where eventually the stuff runs on consumer hardware. So is this, you know, incident really, hey, we don't want consumers to run AI? Is that really what's going on? Are we getting distracted from that? Or
I I think I think you're touching on something, and I'm feeling the spiciness levels heat up a little bit here, and I think that what you're touching on is a very traditional function of corporations and government of lobbying, and I have to ask myself, you know, are we talking about broader kind of like business geopolitical things, or is this literally just the lobbying efforts of OpenAI and Anthropic? where you've got a firm like OpenAI that's going to have bills in the amounts of $1.5 trillion. You've got private corporations in the U.S. that make money by selling compute for people that on paper are struggling. If you look at how they're extending the depreciation timelines for their GPUs and stuff, and then on top of that, it's kind of like this very cyclical type thing. Everyone's made the jokes of like, Nvidia invests in a company so they can buy GPUs, so they can, so it's this whole thing. So I wonder if, you know, you brought up, Phil did a good job of bringing up like who's the bad guys here. It's kind of like one of those situations where it's like, wait, are we the bad guy? Where it's like, who actually is holding AI innovation back? Is it the people who are developing open source models that people could potentially run on their own bare metal, or is it an industry in the West that's being encumbered by two major, overinvested, overstretched companies who have many other entities over leveraged, dependent on them? And is this just a situation where we go from saying, oh, it's an existential threat for this country, those countries, or are we literally just talking about an existential threat to two entities? And I mean, I posted recently, like, I don't believe that we need OpenAI and Anthropic to continue the acceleration of the frontier of AI development. But it feels like we that may be the case. And in recent news yesterday, seeing OpenAI taking the posture of needing to slow down recursive learning and slow down development of models and stuff, it I feel like there's just a lot of tomfoolery afoot. I don't like what's happening at those firms, and I think that they are creating a lot of downward pressure on this industry because they secured the bag. And I'm hoping, similar to crypto, is like, are we going to be able to reach that critical mass to like get into a world where we're not having decelerating factors from the key beneficiaries of the industry to begin with? It's a very interesting space to be in, and unfortunately, I think the discussion does come back to OpenAI and Anthropic, at least in the West.
And to kind of top things off, there are trillion-dollar companies in our own economy who don't agree, right? So this is the craziest thing to add to this. This was just 5 days ago. Apple trains its own AI model for China market with Alibaba support. And obviously, Alibaba is a giant cloud giant in China. They've released Qwen 3.8, which is it's a pretty good model. I've looked at it myself. I would say that maybe leans towards a little bit of benchmarking things that we've seen in other models, but it's a good model, right? And it appears that Apple is also getting into the market of training models now. And maybe because of this agreement or other reasons, they had to actually train their own variant of this model um, for China. So we've kind of heard things about Apple Intelligence. We've all tried it. And there is an expectation now that Apple Intelligence will combine Apple's own local model with Chinese technology such as Qwen as it moves through Beijing, right? So Reuters reported that this could make Apple the first foreign company approved to deploy proprietary AI model in China. So they're kind of going the other way, right? We're hearing that this agreement, don't do business with X, don't use this supply chain. And then there are other companies like, well, we are a global company. We want to deploy and we want to do these things. We want to build for this market. And obviously, it's not going to change the fact that Apple is already selling iPhones and other compute in China today, right? So should they be punished because of what's happening here at a geopolitical level? Um, and you think about it, it's like, is it a lot more work for them because of these things that they have to invest in a completely different market, do it a completely different way? So it's essentially they're building a separate AI stack, right? And now it's like you've already got things like GDPR where you have to do localization of data and you have to keep it in certain compute data centers. So now obviously Apple can afford to do this kind of data residency because they've got this agreement on Alibaba. What happens to startups and smaller organizations? can they just not do anything on a global level because of these limitations? Does their cost and compute go up exponentially just to run a startup because of these geopolitics? Um, and for Apple too, the biggest thing is like clearly China is important enough to make this decision to ship architecture just for this market. So this is really interesting as it kind of contours to the story. Wanted to get your guys' take.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like a huge part of that comes in as it's not just a battle also of benchmarks or models. It's also a battle of like in terms of vision, values also. And it goes back where my mind goes on that is that uh, Apple will most probably be a winner into all of that, and we can rotate back to the Siri days where they were a joke. Like the number of time we made jokes and farce and this meme, coming back as to how Siri was potent or not potent at all, like a year and a half ago when we started, or even before that. What's the last time you guys used Siri for that? But at some point, we got to acknowledge the fact that they've been positioning themselves and aligning with every single key metric to be successful because they're holding a key thing that most of their competitors is not holding physically, and that's distribution. And a huge part of that, in my opinion, will come up as to, yes, there will be models that comes in and is better than whatever is Apple putting up, or yes, the benchmarks will be higher into whatever models coming up, like say until year's end. But at the end of the day, I feel like, and we're definitely entering an era where numbers will not matter as much as to who are holding the tech, like who's holding the distribution of things. And they already got velocity. They're going up with a new phone next week, next month, I believe. It's going to be foldable. They already have this device. They already have this spiciness. They already have this magical component that's already into the physical realm where folks don't need to learn about the thing. They just need to have it, and they already have this. So in my opinion, they're going to be a huge winner, and they will not need the best model to win. That's where I believe we're headed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm in
Yeah,
full agreement with you. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna make a bad joke. You fold it on one side, you get like the American version of phone. You fold it on the other side, then you get the Chinese model. You kind of just keep flipping it.
Hey, I like that.
Sorry, Brandon, you go.
That's good. That's good.
No, I was just gonna say I fully agree with Phil because I think that when we look at what the actual the needs of people as it pertains to compute or kind of like on tap intelligence, it's like I see on my timeline, like I don't think anyone who takes themselves seriously can tell the difference at this point between Opus 5 or whatever or Codec. Like I don't think generally most people can even tell the difference in those models unless you're doing some pretty advanced stuff, working in large code bases or doing advanced scientific research and stuff. I think we're really through the phase of like who has the most powerful model that can do the most stuff. A lot of it's just going to be insane overkill for most people. And I think that the real competitive moat that Apple has is distribution, right? Like Phil, you hit the nail on the head with that. And so the question for me is like, what game is Apple playing right now? It's clear that as soon as they ditched Intel, they were making or even before then when they launched the first A series chip on the iPhone and started doing their own silicon, like that's when Apple, I think, really became a serious AI company. And when we look at what the future of AI looks like, and to your point, Michael, about what is the impact for startups and their cost and what models they are and aren't allowed to use, I feel like currently we are in the Adobe Flash era of AI, right? Where back in the day, if you want to watch a video on your web browser, and not to say that the web browser is going to continue to be the gateway into the world, but if you wanted to consume content on your computer or device, you had to use Adobe Flash until you didn't, until the devices and the software were capable of doing those types of things. And I think AI is going to have a very similar type of trajectory, possibly much faster. And I think that Apple is positioned well for that, where as an example, and again, not to say this is how it's going to happen, but as a developer or as a startup, if you could invoke intelligence on a user's device through a language like HTML, right? Or something like that, and just invoke a query or invoke a message to an agent on someone's device. Apple has one of the most broad deployments of silicon out there possible. That's very powerful. My iPhone has 2 models on it that come out of the box already. So how soon is it going to be until, as a developer, through whatever I'm using, whether it's Swift or Xcode or a website or whatever, not have to think about an API and not have to think about any of those types of things. The routing, everything like that's the right model will happen on device, and I will just instead focus on, well, what type of experience do I want the user to have based off the intelligence? And then of course you have the issue of, well, not everyone's going to have the same device. You're going to have limitations in hardware here and there. But is that just going to become a rounding error as these models become more and more efficient, more and more power efficient and stuff? So I think that we're going to continue to see Apple come up more and more in the AI discussion, but I don't think that it's going to be from the standpoint of, oh, there's a better Siri, or, oh, Apple made a model. I think it's going to be from the standpoint of, um, Apple does a keynote and demonstrates how you can tap into the intelligence on a user's phone through your website securely. It's just all on device, no more APIs, no nothing. And then the startup being able to realize and say, yeah, what service are we trying to provide, and do we need any of these kind of models running on GPUs remotely, or is the compute on the user's device enough to complete the tasks we need to complete for the user? So I think that'll be a very interesting thing. And of course, if Apple can get folks into that headspace, then if you do need more compute, Apple already has the abilities built in to go and reach out to other models. People forget that Apple has been rolling out their own data centers with their own silicon. And you look at some of the other incumbents in the space like NVIDIA, and you look at the margins they have. NVIDIA has 5 customers that's responsible for 90% of their revenue, and every one of their customers is currently working on their own silicon, right? Meta, Google, everybody's working on their own silicon. So at a certain point, a lot of these people the whole playing field is going to be reshaped, and it's going to be very, like, you even have folks like Extropic with thermodynamic computing and stuff. So there's so many weird variables popping into place. And like I said, it's hard to reconcile against seeing, like, Oracle extending their GPU depreciation on their finances from 3 to 5 years. It's like, it's gonna be a shock to the system, I think, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a large benefit to the end user versus just more capital moving up into a small concentration of companies. You have Dario from Anthropic joking about Anthropic being the only company left in the world, right? So it is a very, it's a strange time. And once again, I think that this is where the crypto conversation, that ethos comes into place, where decentralization comes into place, trust, verification, auditability, the core of what HOL is working on, and giving those tools to people. I just think that, the two sides are clear to what's happening. And I think that the side to play in and the side to innovate on is becoming clearer. And that's why I think some of the brand shine that OpenAI and Anthropic have is starting to, wear off a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, uh, historically, open source has always been kind of successful in this way. But also historically, from like Apple's perspective, they didn't have to invest all that much into AI at all, right? They got to watch as these things develop, and now there's open source solutions, and eventually we just need to make DeepSeek 10 times cheaper than it is now, and you can put it on iPhone, right? Can we do that? I think so, eventually. We've even got Qwen 3.8, 27 billion parameter model. I can run that on my Mac today. Is it the most powerful model in the world? No, it's not. But its capabilities of similar size 27B models from even a year ago have 10x. We can expect that they'll continue to get better as we figure out how to run these training pipelines better and better. So I think we've covered this story quite extensively, and we're going to keep covering it on HLX AI. What does this look like from an open source perspective? And one last kind of shoe in here is, I know it's not directly AI news. Yesterday, GitHub went out. That affected like basically every single company in the world that's doing anything on GitHub, right? And I fully expect that this has nothing to do, it's everything to do with AI and the growth of AI and exponential growth, in fact, right? I think there's a postmortem out there. I know that Copilot from Microsoft side was someone involved in this, but we've seen this happening across the board. It's not just GitHub, it's Cloudflare, it's AWS. What a coincidence that major infrastructure companies are starting to struggle at the same time that AI is taking off and we're compute constrained, right? It's a huge coincidence. We need better distributed systems. And this is a point where most people can't afford tokens, right? So this is the area where it's the least abundant amount of usage. Now, what happens when, like the current internet, you have a pretty linear expectation. Every website or company probably has like one domain or something like that, right? But we're going to enter an era where every single connected phone has a persistent IP address that's always on, that's always taking connections, that's always doing some kind of compute capacity. What happens then? Are we ready for that? I think no. Naturally, people have questions. What does privacy look like? What does communication look like? Where are we getting all the resources to manufacture all of this? And what does that level of abundance look like for the rest of society? We have questions, guys.
I was just gonna say the main question too is like, is it needed, or is this a failure in demand creation? Right? We've seen OpenAI, especially, fail over and over and over again to create demand for AI usage for regular people, and I think that there is a bit of desperation, and it's difficult to see these two firms, pump the brakes, pump the gas, kind of whatever which way they want. And I think that the time's running out, right? I think that to your point, Michael, I think that looking at the GitHub situation, it's really weird to me again that these companies that depend on GitHub are trashing it so much. And this is another thing they're trying to, we've got Buzz coming in with a GitHub alternative. We have Cursor coming in with a GitHub alternative. I don't think GitHub's going away. I think that most of these platforms are going to become more hardened as it comes. And so I think that it's interesting for me to see, and also too, Anthropic limiting the ability for people to utilize their models to do bio or scientific related research, and then announcing that they're going to be working on new drug development. So it's a situation where I think they're really desperate for demand creation because, like I said, like most people do not like artificial intelligence. That's just the way that it is, and they're trying to do demand creation. And I think that they've very much like overextended themselves. Like I don't think a lot of these data centers are gonna complete development because, like you said, overnight, Apple at a keynote could say, "Hey, we've just rolled out the largest compute mesh on planet Earth overnight." So it's like there's so many different things that can happen, and that's why, again, I think that if we want to talk about accelerationism, if we want to talk about things moving so quickly, that also means stuff's going to die pretty quick too. And I think what's going to live on is that open source space, and I think that the people who own the data centers to do the compute are going to continue providing that compute. But it is going to be very interesting to see, like, I always joked in my mind where it's like, are we going to see a situation where in a community, in a neighborhood, in the suburbs, everyone pitches in on an air gapped kind of, compute block, like one of the green boxes you'd see in Canada here, like with, power things, and everyone kind of taps in. If you're in the neighborhood, you tap in. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that stuff rolls forward. And again, there's already so many conversations around being able to do inference, not using GPUs. So there's just a lot of different components at play. And I don't want to see, OpenAI and Anthropic continue to be the two firms at the forefront, because they've shown time and time again that they just don't have it together in many different ways. And a lot of these issues that we've seen, a lot of these headlines that we've seen about the threats and about the attacks to different organizations and stuff, they are not due to the intelligence of these models. They're not due to those types of things. It's due to the ineptitude and lack of just basic best practices at these firms to just carry out development in the right way. So I can understand the hesitancy of some governments, and I can understand the narrative out there based on the lobbying of these firms.
Ooh. uh, Phil, any thoughts here before we kind of segue a little bit?
I think a huge part of it also is marketing wise, and we've seen it also. I believe probably like close your eyes and rotate back to the month of March, like back 5 months ago when, Claude and Anthropic were absolutely everywhere. A month after that, there was also the rumor going on around Mythos, which really came out the gates like, wow, this is not a new model. It's just God itself like coming out the gates. And I feel like they really ushered us into a way, an era where folks are expecting stuff just to be like godly and unmeasurable, which is so powerful in marketing. And afterwards came up, and that's maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago, called it like the very end and tail of the spring, is oh, there's a breach. The model is so strong, there's a breach. Oh no, it's breaching stuff. And that really fascinates people because you're going to be talking about it. The circle and incubator like us are just going to be also, okay, let's just pace folks down and here's what happened also, but we talk about it. And that's free attention, that's free marketing, that's free news, free posts, free anything. And that's super powerful. And the era that we are in right now, it seems to have toned down in a bit where we're past this because, of course, user fatigue. We understood that this game is getting played out. And Anthropic and the OpenAI seems to have ceased into that era where they're just like short of ammunition maybe to be pushing like this whole narrative as to look how powerful my model will be and especially the next one, right? So huge proponent also as to it's fun to build stuff around the marketing and how you can push a thing and really entice the magic into things, especially around the product, especially around something that's in such a powerful sphere because folks are paying attention to it, but also coming back as to what's the model actually doing? What is it really, really trying to accomplish? And yeah, I feel like also like this autumn phase also that we're in, potentially like less outbreaks maybe potentially, but yeah, GitHub was another one after that in my opinion.
Also, too, it's not like GitHub wasn't going down in the past. I mean, people are sharing those shots of like all of a sudden, look at GitHub's downtime. It's like, well, I mean, around that month they launched more granular reporting, so you're going to now see that on the chart. So there's a lot of like tomfoolery happening out there. I think that largely the narrative from OpenAI and Anthropic is, oh my God, we're going to blow up the world. I mean, when Sam Altman was going to launch GPT 3.5, he said, this is so scary. I don't think we should release this. So their narrative is like, um, we are too scary and too big to fail. The government must support us and buy us out essentially. So we are kind of immortal. And that's kind of the struggle here is I think that a lot of the general public and a lot of folks in this industry are aligned on that, which is we can't focus so much on these two firms because that might not actually be where the risk lies. And it might just be a red herring just because those firms want to have their future secured indefinitely. And it might actually be to a detriment from a threat perspective to way too much into that, to buy too much into that narrative. Because to bring it back to the beginning of this conversation, Michael, it's a global thing, right? The threats are not going to be emanating just from the US or, it's like we can't look at it that way. And I just think that because these firms have an outsized control, both in the mind share, but also just from a lobbying perspective, I just think that we always have to kind of weight it in that respect. And as we say in crypto, zoom out a little bit.
Zoom out, you got to look at the chart, guys. And what is the chart telling you? These things are getting bigger, smarter. The growth is maybe slowing down, right? Maybe you don't need the biggest, smartest thing. Maybe you can run DeepSeek. I think for most tasks, you can actually run that, right? And you don't have to pay a premium for it. And the capabilities, because of, in some ways, I think a lot of the innovation that we're seeing from non-Western models is because they're compute constrained. They don't have access to the same chips that are available. So you have to come up with clever ways. Like, how do we make this cache better? How do we improve the pipeline? How do we, instead of let's just throw a bunch of compute capacity at the problem, let's actually think about it. And that's coming out of a lot of great innovation that benefits not just non-Western organizations, but also the Western ones. So I want to switch gears here, and I think this is going to be a big fun topic, a little bit less spicy, but so we all heard about Cursor being acquired by SpaceX. It seems that acquisition is now completed, and now we're seeing a merger of the two brands as a couple of things that are going on here. The biggest one, obviously, is the release of the Grok bot, which if you go through the Grok bot, you kind of see is like, oh, this looks like a Cursor product, but it's called the Grok bot. It connects like directly. You start using it through Cursor. You connect your Cursor subscription, so you can see that this is maybe something they've been working on for a long time. Grokbot is really cool because it seems similar to things like Hermes and OpenClaw, but it has its own computer. And you can see that when you start messing around, because I love trying these products. And I've messed around with Hermes, I've messed around OpenClaw. We use a lot of Hermes assistants for our work at HOL, and they're great. But they don't have their own computer, meaning they don't have their own browser. You have to plug in and kind of tie a bunch of things together. And it seems like Grokbot is that next evolution where you've got this thing, you can literally, and let me share my screen in case you guys haven't seen this yet. You can literally record actions inside of it, which is pretty cool. So it's like, hey, I want to do this task over and over again. You log into your account inside of Grokbot and you go and teach it. Oh, I want you to go and grab these links and do yada yada. You can do that inside of it directly, which is cool. It's a very different experience. What's also interesting about Grokbot is all the things that it doesn't have, right? When you run and open Grokbot, the interface is very simple. It's like they stripped everything down from it. It looks like a really basic chat. When you talk to it, you just get text messages. It kind of feels like you're in iMessage and you're talking to this thing. But then you can kind of click into it and it's like, oh, I can control the computer. I can log into my accounts inside of this thing. So it's interesting. We haven't done a whole lot yet, but wanted to get your guys' take. Grokbot, have you started experimenting with it? And if so, what kind of things are you doing with it?
Oh, go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, you know how much of a huge fan I am of Elon. I didn't play around with it yet. I just watched reviews, looked on the timeline also what was happening. What really captivates my attention on that is that the narrative and focal points just on that is so 2026 and beyond in terms of they're really stripped in terms of verbiage that they have on there is really for the masses, for the users that will never have to learn about benchmarks or what if the technical side of things, because on the platform on this product, oh, that's the chatbot directly on this platform. You can just do things, and that's, I believe, that's where we're heading. Oh, that's super interesting. Will it know? I'm curious.
Well, I guess I have to create it first or something like that.
Okay.
Is this thing on? Doesn't actually let me chat inside of it, which is strange. No, keep going, Phil. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So yeah, I just felt like, you mentioned it like accordingly in terms of that's the proper continuity and things and how you want this end-all be-all solution, but at the same time you want to strip all the noise, all the things that quote unquote doesn't really matter. You want to get straight to the juice, straight to the point, straight to the matter what is it that you want to accomplish. And I feel like they're really giving the power to the user. It just makes sense. And you mentioned, is it back? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned OpenClaw also, which was a huge error. I remember back in the days, and it feels like back in the days, feels like 2 years. It's crazy. Where it just came out, it just felt like you were literally touching God with this. I believe this encompasses really it. We can do anything with it, and it's close to you in terms of products.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like I think that this is the direction in which things are gonna go. The thing for me though is I always wonder, like, again, the products that's being sold here is token usage, and what you know shareholders want to see is usage of the product, usage of the compute that they're paying a bajillion dollars for. Oh, this is awesome. This is great. This is where it makes a lot of sense too, is having the context in these agents to eloquently and properly answer stuff. I think that's great. I think that
Well, this is definitely one of the AI stuff here, but
I mean it like it is what it is. But I mean for me, what I've learned, and again, being on a similar journey to yourself, Michael, of trying out all these different, agents and different things. For me, what I've realized is that there's two camps. There's folks that definitely want to be prosumers. They want to play around, and I think that's what the target market is for this type of stuff. It's we've done a ton of CapEx, and we need to figure out how to get people to use these as many of these tokens as possible. Everyone's going to have an always-on Slack instance with a CMO and a brand person and a DevRel and like whatever it might be. But for myself, I think what's always been true since the prompting days of AI has been you're only going to get as much out of it as your understanding of the problems you want to solve, right? And so my problems I need to solve are a few examples is like I get a lot of information coming at me from all sorts of different sources and I have things that fall through the cracks, right? So obviously that's a great application of artificial intelligence. There's definitely concerns in regards to having an agent use a browser and reading your XDMs and all that kind of stuff. So there's that, but then also specific things of like, I've got a live show from my own experience and knowledge. I understand how difficult and what a pain it is to create content, but I also know how horrible those AI video editing products are. So I know how to build one for myself and save myself time. And I think that we are looking at kind of like T-shaped agent setups where mine is a little less general and all encompassing and much more T-shaped where it can of course do everything the same as any other model out there, but it has a very strong specialization in certain types of things. And so I think that's kind of what's going to separate the new wave of like prosumer users and then kind of the power or the kind of like actual people using applied AI for like business outcomes and business objectives. It's the similar thing to like someone buying a bunch of like nice cameras to take photos of their pets and kids versus somebody doing wedding photography or whatever it might be. And so I think that being an early adopter, you've got to try everything. But I think that in this world that we have now, or maybe limited time frame of subsidized compute, I'm always focused on coming back to that question of like, what problem am I trying to solve? And understanding that there's another side to it where if I were to go to a local business, let's say, or if I were to go to a small, medium business that maybe isn't so plugged into AI, and I were to say, oh my God, I'm going to be able to develop you a dashboard and an agent system and a whole thing to help you get better business outcomes, help you get better leads. They're just going to be like, can you just give me the leads? Like, people are going to, we're entering a world of people are going to be wanting outcomes. They're going to want the end product. They're not going to want necessarily the process of doing it because they're going to say, isn't that what AI is for? Why would I use, I already have a Slack full of people that annoy me. Now you're telling me that these people are never going to sleep, So I think that there's always kind of another side to the coin. So I think that on one hand, I'm so excited and am having so much fun with these products. But on the other side, I'm always thinking about like, what is the objective of the company that's providing me these tools? And what is going to be the objective of the individuals and businesses they're going to want to see positive outcomes by either working with me or being associated with me. And I think we're definitely in that kind of zone right now. It's getting easier to do anything. And we always kind of start coming back to distribution. So I guess in a long-winded way, it's just another tool on the heap of tools that we have. I think Grokbot is definitely better because it's bundled with a bunch of really amazing things and they don't have the stank that Anthropic and OpenAI have right now. But yeah, I'm always keeping that in mind, right? Of the last thing I'll leave with is an analogy that I'd share a lot of when I used to do web development at a branding agency, which feels like it's not even a job that exists anymore. But I'd always say to people coming in, clients coming in that want these like bloated WordPress websites and they want a spinner and a gallery and a thing. And you remember the old days of web development. And I'd always say, well, if you go to a car dealership and you say, I'm looking for a vehicle that seats a family of 5 comfortably, and they come around with a cargo van, your needs are met for sure. And the dealership makes a bunch of money because it's a big vehicle. But at the same time, it's kind of like, where's the sedan? Where's the right sized fit? And it goes back to what Phil was saying, where it's like, is it about the most powerful model? Is it about the most expansive tool? Or is it about understanding like what problem you're trying to solve and where AI is going to apply to it? It's the lesson that we learned in crypto time and time and time again. A problem or a solution looking for a problem. AI is exciting because the feedback loops are so fast that I think if you put the work into figuring out like what actual problems you're trying to solve, you're going to be ahead of so many people. And I think that almost kind of totally destroying my whole point here. I think that a great tool to figure out what problems to solve is Grokbot potentially. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's I think it's still got like some kinks that have to be worked out, but it feels like a more polished evolution of what's coming next with these tools. And we mentioned this a lot on the show, and you just mentioned it too. It's like you don't need the best thing to solve all of these problems. Sometimes you can use weaker capacity models and you can kind of get away with that. Um, with Grokbot, I know like a lot of the positioning is, hey, this is a thing that can maybe it even touches on what Jack Dorsey's trying to do with Buzz, and having an always on teammate, right? And I've got this thing rolling now, and this is kind of cool. Look, so uh, it took me a minute to set up because I'm still trying to figure out how to use Grokbot myself. But you can see on my screen, it's got this live browser in here. It's got its own
Yo, is it
terminal.
watching our stream?
It is, yeah.
Oh, dude,
So
I'm so sorry for talking shit about Grokbot. Oh my God, it's watching our stream. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Grokbot.
we prayed to Grokbot now. I mean, so I was like, okay, I pulled it up on your browser. What do you think of the show? The setup's real. Boom mic, cash pack on, you and the tile, that part of the show, not a leftover Zoom. So what this
Hell
is
yeah.
telling me is like it can read the browser. It knows what it's looking at. It's not just like guessing. It knows exactly what's going on here. Um, it says it's reading my shirt. It says it's time to trust AI, and that's like a really small square inside of the browser, which is crazy. So now I know, okay, Grokbot has some really good visual cognition that it's able to pick that up because most models are really bad with visual.
Mhm.
This is a huge issue. Like if you do a lot of software development or you do a lot of design, for like years, AIs couldn't recognize hands when you
Right.
tell it to actually make hands. It just struggle immensely. But you've got this bot that has its own computer, and I just sent it a link. I put it up in its browser. It's able to recognize the text on my shirt. That's pretty
Crazy.
incredible, right? And I know this thing has so many views, 0 replies. People aren't giving a reason to stop by. Well, Grok, thanks, but we didn't really market this, and this is just a test run. So,
I
but
didn't know we were
okay, I
gonna get
appreciate.
roasted by Grokbot live on the show. Jeepers
Yeah,
That could
creepers,
be
boys.
a thing. That could be a thing of the show. Also,
Yeah.
imagine we just get roasted by LLMs.
Yeah.
uh,
Damn.
well, we could, because then there's like this button here to create a routine, and you can put on schedule. So we're gonna run the show again next Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern, the same timeline. So maybe 30 minutes in, we'll do a schedule, pull this up, and just
Nice.
roast us. What do we do bad? What can we do better? How do we make the show more exciting? Maybe that'll be a use case for Grok here on the
And we
show.
get grokked. Yeah.
We get
Damn.
Grok.
Damn.
Yeah.
The other kind of cool thing too is you get to go inside of Grok. There are these settings. Um, I can't actually get to it now. Maybe the UI has changed, but you can connect a whole bunch of tools to it.
Mm.
Like you could give it access to your email, to your meeting notes, to your X account. And I also saw that X mentioned, I think it was somebody on their technical team, that they're gonna allow
Okay, do you hear me, Phil?
Yeah, loud and clear. I lost Michael though. That's what I
I
was
lost
writing in
Michael.
chat. I was like, oh, am
No.
is it just me? Michael is gone.
Okay, he's gone. Now we can talk about whatever we want. Phil.
Okay, let's go. Let's go, B.
Okay.
We got this. Okay.
All right. So,
This is not recorded, so we're good. We're good.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Oh no, he's back. Wait, never mind. Hold on. He's back. Uh-oh. We're in trouble.
So yeah, Frontier model and all. Yeah, Grok and GPT-5, I think. Yeah, are the best. For sure. Oh,
Yeah, Michael rocks too.
Yeah. HOL guard is awesome.
No, I was I was just saying, it's one of the things I saw is with Grokbot that they're gonna let you connect your X account and create content with it, which kind of goes. It feels like a little bit. Hey, we're going the opposite way now because X has waged this war about offered content for a long time, and now they're going a different route. But the caveat is when you use Grokbot to create content, it's going to have a label on it, so you can clearly see, oh, this was done by Grokbot. So that's kind of nice, right?
Yeah, I can see who the dumbest people on my timeline are right away and unfollow them. I was gonna say too. Talking about timelines and social stuff. One thing that's interesting to me, my last hot take is, and I know this is a spicy.
That's the one.
I'm feeling a little spicy. I was chatting with someone, and I keep hearing over and over again where it's like, AI is gonna go mainstream soon. AI is gonna make a ton of money soon, and there's a part of me too that goes like, have we all entered like a coma where we forgot about like the news feed product or advertising systems on Facebook and X? Like these have been machine learning driven agentic systems for a decade at this point, populating your news feeds, populating your content, all these different types of things, and those products make billions and billions and billions of dollars. Entire industries are built up by the mechanism of just placing bids for ads in a timeline and displaying the different types of news to you. So on one hand, I'm like, it's a very interesting space than it is to crypto, because there is this foundation and this baseline of massive success and ROI of this technology already. And so that's always something I try to keep in mind when we talk about like the wave is coming, the AI wave is coming. I'm like, it already happened and billions and if not trillions of dollars were made. This is just the next kind of step up from that. There is a very strong foundation for this technology. So I always try to kind of keep that in mind. And I joke about the content stuff. I think that why X is doing that is I think that they're very interested to see how people generate and publish content. And what I think is going to happen is soon we're going to get over the fact of like, oh, I can make an AI image and I can have something write a post. I think that what people are generally going to start using it more for is that kind of stopping things slipping through the crack type stuff. It's in the DMs, it's in the replies, it's in a lot of the nuance of like, where are things happening? When are things popping up? I'd love Grokbot to be able to say, this is a narrative happening right now, early on X, that is in your wheelhouse. Would you like me to start like collaborating with you on this right now? Like, I think that that's really going to be where the power's unlocked. And it's going to take us from like, oh, make an AI image and draft a post and post it, to we're actually going to start getting to content being elevated and quality of content being made better. Because coming from the music industry myself, once we got Pro Tools, once we had computer music, all that kind of stuff, the argument was, oh, now anyone can make music and it's just going to get worse. And I think that, and again, I joke about this stuff, but I do truly believe that although it is easier than ever to make crap and slop content, it is also easier than ever to make the best content of your life, you know?
One last thing I'll add to that too, and this is a really good way of comparing it. So video game industry, there was I think it was with somebody from Sony or Square Enix. They were asking them, I was like, hey, are you worried about AI being able to create video games so easily? because of these frontier models. And the producer was like, no, not at all. It's like opposite, actually the opposite. Because if you look at the economics of video games, there's maybe 4 hits a year, right? And if anything, the large organizations that have access to capital are still going to make hits, right? But even then, it's like the odds of success of creating a successful hit are so low. So the only thing that, you know, will really change is the quality of those outcomes will be even better. So what you consider a hit today will be elevated 100 times, maybe even 1,000 times now that we've got access to this new technology. And he's like, one of the things I'm most excited about is NPCs, right? Like NPCs are going to be so much more interesting with AI. So you're looking at frontier industries like that. You're looking at industries like music and creative arts. Um, Pandora's box is open. Now, the people who are leading at that frontier, they're not worried about it. If, you know, like you just adjust to it, things change and progressively the creative outcomes become better. Did we stop listening to music when Pro Tools came out? Did thousands of new artists come out a day that we all listen to? I mean, there's a whole bunch of indie niche artists, but the industry hasn't changed too much. There's a couple of pop singers that come out every year, a couple of new artists. It hasn't really, you know, damaged the music industry in any way. If anything, it just made the bar higher for everyone else. That's really all it changed. It's still hard. It doesn't get easier just because you've got access to fancy new tools. The same thing for startups and organizations that are using AI to augment their software workloads. For now, anybody can launch a blockchain with AI. Should you do it? Is it going to be easy for you to turn that into a $3 billion token? No, definitely not. It's still going to be hard. If anything, it's going to be harder than it was before. That's really all that changes. But the outcome so much better for everyone, and that's why we are interested in AGI. That's why, in particular, we're interested in open source AGI, because we can imagine that the outcomes will be better for humanity in the long run. We'll get better things, better medicine, science, creative arts, liberty, and so forth. So it's just a new kind of, say, a new world for us to navigate in, but it still has similar rules, and society still functions in the same way around it. With that said, we've been here for over an hour. I know Phil and Brandon, you guys have been here for just 30 minutes while we were debugging, just getting the shell online. This was our first official episode of HLX AI. Next week is going to be so much better. We're going to keep iterating here. We're going to hope to bring you the best download of AI content on the feed, and we're going to grow this into a really massive show. So if you're interested in collaborating and working with us, do reach out. I'd be excited to have you. Brandon, Phil, any last words before we get out of here?
Keep building beautiful things with AI. Go relentlessly into that journey. Have fun. Stay safe. Catch you next week.
Oh yeah, I would say dive in, start using the products, and now is a really, like everyone says, the catch 22. The really difficult part is like having the experience, or you know, we joke about building a blockchain, but like, what increases your likelihood of building a successful blockchain? Having failed trying to build blockchains. I mean, now is a really great time to fail at doing things because you have the tools available to do it. That's how you learn. So I think doing things for the sake of it, taking advantage of the subsidized tokens we have right now, and understanding that you're super early, and just, God forbid, have some fun and stay safe.
Great. Thanks so much. Without further ado, thanks everyone for joining us for HLX AI. If you joined today, you're an early observer into what is going to be a magnificent show. HLX